Hello, everybody. Hello. Hello. If everybody could quiet down. Yeah. Hello, hello. Okay. Well, thank you all for being here. Welcome to our 6th webinar series for the Future Forward project. We are now today going to be exploring the question, how can Africans be changemakers in the 21st century? My name is Tsagabelacho, and I am the Community and Engagement Manager for Future Forward, which is a project focused on innovations for youth employment, and it's a partnership between Ashoka and the MasterCard Foundation. This is our 6th event, so we have been engaging our online audience. So those of you here in the office, we're really excited that you could be here because our online audience is also tuning in, but we're excited for in-person engagement this time as well. So welcome to everybody on that. So over this past several months, we have explored the topic of youth employment in Africa from various different angles. We have showcased the central role of innovation and change making in being able to really shift the system of employment in the workplace such that young Africans are at the center and in charge of their own livelihoods and creating meaningful and purpose-filled livelihoods. In our last webinar, we explored concrete examples that showed what successful collaboration looks like and how we're engaging marginalized populations in Ghana, Kenya, and South Africa. That was only one of our events. Today, we have a live stream from Ashoka headquarters with all of our colleagues, some guests who are also outside of Ashoka coming in, and we will also be featuring 2 of our fellows who we're really excited to have in the office. It's always such a pleasure to work closely and to have in person social innovators that are truly disrupting and changing systems. So I introduce to you Marlon Parker, who is the founder of RLabs, which is based in South Africa, and we came up with this really quick phrase to describe what he does because we find it quite exciting. And the phrase that we came up with is transforming at-risk problem expert youth into IT-enabled change makers. So he will talk a little bit more about that. Esther is the founder of After School Peer Mentoring Project, which is an initiative that aims to provide growth opportunities to young people to develop themselves professionally and personally. And so her big thing is that she creates a pathway between the education space where young people are into the real world and the workplace where young people are aspiring to be but may not have the pathways and may not know which ways to go. So as we have done in previous webinars, and as I had mentioned earlier, we do have our online audience who we are very excited to have here. And so we will be running the Twitter chat, which will be on #AfricaYouthFWD. So we invite you all to tweet on there, and we're taking questions as of now. So we're ready to take your questions to our panel. So anytime a question pops up to you, we'll be able to weave that into the conversation. We'd love to hear about your comments and thoughts. Before we do get started, I want to share with you the announcement that we made during our last webinar, which is that we launched Youth Innovations for Employment in Africa Challenge. We're really excited about this because we have fellows like Marlon and Esther that are disrupting our systems. We have 25 of those fellows through the Future Forward project, but now we're engaging young people, ages 18 to 30, who have ideas to solve the problems, who can be in charge of solving the problems there. So we're inviting these young people. The early entry deadline for that challenge, which is on changemakers.com/futureforward, will be October 15th, and the final entry deadline would be November 5th. So enough with all the formalities. We can get started. So I would like to first just, a lot of what we've done with our in-person brown bags in the headquarters is we try to get to know our fellows. So the first question really is going back to the central question of this brown bag: how can Africans be change makers in the 21st century, in the workplace of the 21st century? Both of you are kind of African. You are and were youth yourselves. So if you could share your personal inspiration to become a change maker and how you believe your venture is activating change making and what your work is about. So Marlon, if you could start.
Sure. Hello everybody. Good seeing everyone, and greetings to those who's watching online as well. So my journey really started back in Cape Town. I grew up on the Cape Flats, an area that is known for a lot of social ills and social challenges. Typical scenario was, it's a single mom. I grew up fatherless, had a number of siblings, and one of my brothers got involved in my biggest fear, which was involving gangs and drugs. And growing up and being the only person in my family who had completed school, it was during that period where I then started realizing, as I started venturing into going to university, that somewhere, and it was while visiting my mom, there was a little boy that came walking down the street, and it was during school hours. And I asked this little boy, I said, why are you not at school? You're 8 years old. You're supposed to be in school. And he said, no, he's looking for a job. And I was like, at the age of 8, I was like, why are you looking for a job? And he said, no, he wants to earn money because he wants to buy him shoes. And he's got this 5-year-old sister that he wants to take care of. And I'm like, but now where's your parents? And he said, no, his father is in prison, and his mom is, is on a high. She's been on drugs, and so therefore he has to take the responsibility as an 8-year-old. It was that key moment for me personally, that while I was looking at this boy, and on the one hand I was doing okay in my career, that an inner voice just kind of challenged me and said, that you can either have a great career, which is fine, we don't blame people for having good careers, but at the same time, the place where I come from, the community that invested in me, is now broken, and people are dying. Well, not dying, but people are suffering. And the inner voice just said, Marlon, you can either build a great career, or you can decide to actually leave a legacy. Because people actually remember people who are willing to leave legacies. You can either become a change maker. And that really became the key catalyst for me to start today what is known as RLabs. So there was no big business plan. There was no, when to go and study anything in development. It was simply wanting to make a difference just in one life in my community. And that got me on this journey of RLabs. And the only thing that I wanted to do was simply this. I just wanted to make sure that one other person and their family don't go through what I've been through, and trying to instill hope in this person. So today, when we think about RLabs, we always say that yes, we in the business of hope. That is our business. We want to see the change and the transformation in the lives of people, but above all, we provide environments and enable environments where people like this little boy who have lost hope can come in and start believing that irrespective of my circumstances, it's not going to determine my destiny.
So if you could share a little bit more about how your venture works, what's the model that it uses, how do you implement change in South Africa and globally?
Yeah, so our approach has really been, there's a number of key things, but I think at the heart of it, we realize that we need to develop people. So we have a training academy that we offer, and people have to apply for scholarships, and our requirements are it's not as rigorous as the Shawkers. On our case, it's not about your qualifications, it's not about money, there's simply two things. To apply, you have to promise us that whenever you come into our space, you have to smile. And most people can smile. It's, even if you have to fake it a bit, you can smile. And the second key aspect to being accepted into our academy program is the one promise that whatever you've learned, you're going to use it to do something good. In other words, you should at least start venturing into becoming a bit of a change maker. So the first thing is developing and investing in people. The second part of what we do is creating environments where physical spaces where people can come in, and once you've kind of learned the skill and you become excited, and especially if you're very passionate about some of your problems in your community, the next thing is to actually allow people to solve some of the local challenges in the communities. So for example, if there's a problem of education, they could, for example, start little aftercare programs, and we will help them to develop these programs. In some instances, it could be that you want to assist people to find the job seekers. Then we'll help people to develop technology that becomes like a poor man's LinkedIn. So these are the kind of the second thing that what we do. We create these enabling environments where the most unlikeliest of innovators can actually innovate and be the change in the communities. And then the third thing that we do is we actually identify some of these key innovations that are emerging from the community. We then actually incubate and turn it into enterprises. And that is really kind of our process. And of course, what we also do is 95% of our team are people that has come through our doors seeking hope, who have given up on life.
Great, thank you so much, Marlon. So Esther, if you could also share your own personal journey as a change maker and how you set out to create your venture, and then the model of your venture and what your operations look like.
Okay. I know I talk a lot, so I'm going to promise to be really brief, but I just want to share a story of a young girl in Nigeria who, at a point of her life, she was the only child in the family, and her mom had to go through a lot of violence against women, which was physical abuse, and then of course the verbal abuse, or having a female child, or having an only child who is actually female, and going through that type of family situation. What it basically does to you is that it already reminds you of the fact that you are not human, or you're supposed not to be human because you're female. And at age 13, that young girl just decided she's had enough, and she wanted to change, and she wanted to take back her humanity, and she wanted to live above the violence, live above the patriarchal society, and live above the fact that there is no inheritance from anywhere getting to her. She's just going to succeed in life. She's just going to overcome all of the challenges and live also above the norm that you're supposed to, if you're in secondary school, that's high school, you're supposed to get pregnant. I mean, of course, you also have cousins who have gone to school and they've not come out successfully. So, I mean, your life has already been figured out for you. And today, that young girl is the person sitting in front of you and having this conversation. So at 13, what happened to me was quite simple. I got involved in an organization called Girls Power Initiative. So I went through a process of leadership development, discovering who I am. And one of the things that I discovered about myself was that I have a very loud voice, and then I talk a lot, and I'm very energetic. So I could stand in a class and take a session for a whole day. So, I mean, going through all that process really made me understand that, look, this is who I am. So I had to start making certain decisions about my life. One was that I'm going to go through secondary school without getting pregnant. And I'm also going to head on to the university. And so in my family, I was successfully the first girl who graduated from secondary school without dropping off school and also being pregnant. So my dad had this major praising session for me, and he was really happy about the fact that that happened. And then, of course, my cousins who came after me followed suit. So what got me into doing what I do today is one of my classmates in school, in my third year in university. Her name is Lizzie. She had some situation in her family. She lost her dad, so life happened and everything changed. Her priorities changed, and she had to work for the first time in her life. And we just had several discussions, and she was lacking behind in school and all that. And one of the things that really came out from several discussions that we had was really, she was just studying social work in university because she really needed a degree, not like she was passionate about it. And so after several of the discussions, we got to the common understanding that she was much more passionate about the arts, fashion industry, makeup. So what I quickly did was just link her up with a lady who does makeup professionally in Calabar. So she began to learn how to do makeup. She began to work for the lady for like 2 years plus. And today, Lizzie is a peer mentor in the after-school program. She's trained over 200 young persons on makeup. She also takes in all of the young persons that we send from the program as interns to her. So this was actually the beginning of after school. It just got me to realize I was in a social work class, and we were about 234 in the university. And for most of our classmates, they basically had no idea or no clue where they were going to in life, or what they intend to achieve with their social work degree, or where they wanted to major, or just anything. Because really, career guidance and counseling is like almost non-existent in Nigeria. And like in my type of school, in secondary school, the day you get to the career counselor's office, you know that you definitely committed something. So you're going to be whooped. So that's our version of career guidance and counseling. So the day you get the announcement, you either come into class, or a teacher comes into class, or a notice sent to your class, and they're like, so person, Esther A. you have to go to the career counselor's office. You start reviewing your day or your week and start noting the things that you must have committed wrong, because it's going to be read out to you, and there are several punishments for that, including whooping. So this was what got me into doing the thing that I do today. Doing after-school programming for young people, getting young persons to actually plan for their graduation. In Nigeria, it's not a norm, and what the after-school project is doing is to build that norm where young persons actually plan for their graduation. Where getting into school, you don't just get into school because this is the course that the university offered me, and even if the university actually offered you this particular course, what can you actually make out of that course? So, so this was the start of the after-school peer mentoring project, and for the past 4 years, before Ashoka found us, we've reached out to 5,000 young persons in Calabar and in Cross River State. And our programming is quite simple. We work with young persons from 13, and that's actually a biased age because that was the time that I discovered myself. So we work with young persons from age 13 to 30. And what we do is, from secondary school, we try to make them find themselves. We try to assist young persons find themselves, activate their careers, be able to think through who they are, discover who they are, and actually find that purpose that they have in their lives, and actually to also start finding their career path. It's not something that's a plug and play. It's not like a light bulb where you switch it on and switch it off, but it's a process. So what we basically do is we take in young persons through a process of leadership learning, of self-understanding, self-awareness, self-direction. So from your secondary school, we also have programs for post-secondary. We also have programs for undergraduates in university, and then we also have programs for graduates. And for all of these programs that we do, we also link them up with opportunities. We do a lot of opportunity facilitation to linking them up to either jobs, internship placement opportunity, exchange opportunities that they can actually learn on the job, learn a whole lot about the workplace. So our global goal is to ensure that young people transit seamlessly from school to work.
Wonderful. Thanks for sharing that, and especially that personal story as well, to both of you. And so the themes that really connect what both of you are doing are that young people have real-world experiences that feed into where they're going in their lives, and that they have the potential to be change makers. They have the potential to pursue really powerful and meaningful careers, but how are they doing that? So as we've been exploring this question of youth employment within the Future Forward project, we're realizing, the graduation rates are increasing in schools while the employment rates are still plummeting, especially in sub-Saharan Africa. The youth employment crisis is one of the biggest in the continent. So my question to you is, in this workplace that's kind of unpredictable, it's a little bit crazy, and it's going in this direction where you're not sure where the jobs are, how do you find them, what kind of skills do you need? What is the role of change making, and what is the kind of mindset that young people need to bring to that space? And if you could both answer that question, we'll turn the table to our audience because we want to stay as interactive as possible as well.
Maybe you use the word workplace. I love the word workplace because it just doesn't make any sense. I mean, I can be standing in my community and I look around and there's work that I need to do in my community. So technically, that place becomes a workplace. But somehow we've always attached it to that a workplace always attached to a entity of some sorts. So the first thing that we've started doing is getting young people to start realizing, but all around you is a workplace. You know, when you see the elderly person that's trying to get across the road, there's a workplace. You can help the person across the road, and you can become the best person to take the elderly across the road in your community. And I think, unfortunately, the way education and programs are run, it somehow kind of discounts, you know, these kind of activities. And I mean, like the program that Ashoka is offering, I do believe, and a lot of other entities, that we need to start getting, especially young people on the continent, realizing that there is so immense opportunity for you. And the programs that we need to develop or that we need to install is getting them to start thinking and realizing that with whatever skill I have, I can actually do something and get good at it. And through the work from our lab side, all we've done is we've literally just started getting young people to start focusing, not just here, but start getting them to focus there. And the minute you start unlocking that opportunity, it becomes big. Even with graduates, I mean, we've got a lot of graduates that are unemployed. In South Africa, we also have a lot of young people that drop out of school. So I mean, if graduates are already struggling, you know, what about those who's not even completed school? And I do believe that we need to have more systems and programs in place that enables young people to start doing these kind of activities. And it could potentially be that in some instances, because the problem is that you don't need to have policy change in order to do something in your community. So for me, the biggest thing would be if we can start getting activities and programs that can allow young people just to start seeing the world around them as a workplace. That already would be a big difference.
And do you think the jobs will come then, or they're creating the jobs, or how does that look?
I always believe that if you create enough value, someone out there is going to see the value, and then and that is where it comes. The problem we have is a lot of people they want to capture value before they create value. They first say, oh no, I first want to earn this salary, I want that. So there's that kind of entitlement. And the more we can get young people to create value, because the more value you create, the more valuable you become. And that is always, and even for young social entrepreneurs, you know, the first thing is, I want someone to give me money so that I can do the good. No, you do the good, and then the money will come. And I think that kind of switch on both from job creation, but also those that are venturing into becoming change makers, saying, you know what, even if it's just one person whose world you are changing, you then a world changer.
Great.
Okay, just to respond to that, unfortunately, like Marlon rightly said, the educational system in Nigeria is quite the same, where your education is like it's standalone, and then the workplace and your all the things you learn in school is like a standalone. There's no that connect. And one of the things that we always do we currently do in after school is just to have a way of demystifying what exactly constitutes the workplace. So we get young persons to start having early careers, and also being able to write their career plan, have a career tree to get to exactly where they want to get to in life. And one of the ways that we actually achieve this is through flagging up informal work, being a volunteer, being through a process, working in an environment where you have to learn, work, your internships, your apprenticeships. They are all part of your working experience, and they are all part of, and it's always really, really fascinating when you tell a young person, do you realize that like in the workplace, any work is work, any experience is an experience, whether paid or unpaid. They're like, really? It comes out a lot in the sessions that we have. So it's the workplace is, I do agree with you, the workplace is constantly changing, And the fantastic thing about our programs is that it is so informal that you could see yourself through the process. You could see from when you join the program to in each step of the way, you could actually see the change in terms of the soft skills that you possess, in terms of the things that you know, in terms of the process that you go through. You could actually see that change. So it's informal programs like this, through informal learning opportunities, offer young persons the opportunity to actually learn the dynamism and prepare for that dynamism of the workplace, so they don't find themselves lost or either hanging or find themselves in a situation where they cannot really bridge the gap between where they are and the jobs that are actually being available.
That's great. Well, just to plug Ashoka, since all my colleagues are here and they know what I'm about to say, I think Ashoka's stand on this is also that, you know, it is this place that's very dynamic, that's very much changing. So you have to have the skills to work with other people, to be able to connect and to empathize and to understand other people. You have to have the skill sets to be change makers, to get out of your comfort zone and take on challenges, to be a leader but also a follower. So I think, you know, both of your points illustrate that. So thank you for that. So let's open it up to everybody here, since this is a conversation more than presentation. Amy here next to me is connected to our online audience, since our loyal online audience has been with us for a while. Can we take some questions from them?
Our online audience has actually been quite shy today. We don't have any questions. So who would like to be the bold first person to ask a question? We'll be waiting.
I just have a quick question. Yeah. Marlon, what does RLabs stand for?
What does RLabs stand for? It actually stands for Reconstructed Living Lab.
Reconstructed.
Reconstructed Living Lab. So the idea is about reconstructing communities through innovation.
Great. Great answer. Thanks.
I must be honest, the name itself wasn't well thought of either. It just always knew that we wanted to reconstruct communities and people. So that was just the name.
The information that was sent out says that RLabs is now spread to 22 countries. Are those all in Africa or beyond? But more interesting to me, I can picture how you do this in Cape Flats or in Cape Town.
Yeah.
But how do you start it elsewhere in South Africa, elsewhere in Africa, elsewhere in the world where you don't have the roots to make the connections?
Yeah, very good question. So we predominantly in Africa, but then we're also in Europe, Southeast Asia, Canada, and then also in South America as well. Still looking for someone to go to Antarctica. Is anybody on your mind that's willing to, you know, you want to do something with the penguins?
I can suggest some other people I'd like to send to it.
But interestingly enough, I mean, our first, we at the time, I mean, I must be honest, everything that we've learned was always organically. We registered as a non-profit because people told us that when you do good social work, it's always non-profits. So that's why we became non-profit. I didn't know this. So when we wanted to now start something elsewhere, I heard someone say, no, but you must do a franchise. Okay, so we're going to franchise. So our first franchise actually happened to be in 2010 while I was doing a talk in Portugal. And we were just chatting and I was talking about how RLabs is all about hope. That's our business. We build hope economies. We want to see hope being instilled, and we want to see hope being contagious. That's what we want to do. And there was a group of young men there who said, Marlon, but in Portugal we also need hope. You know, we had the recession, the youth unemployment is coming very badly. Can't we also do RLabs in Portugal? Now at that time, we were in one room on the Cape Flats, right? I mean, so I left my team, we were in one small little room in another organization's building. And of course, being the type of person I am, I said, yes, of course, we're going to do this. RLabs Portugal. So we set up RLabs Portugal in partnership with the University of Porto. So you can imagine what happened to my team when I got back. I said, guys, we're now a global organization. You know? But they said, but Marlon, we're still here in a room on the Cape Flats. So the growth purely happened organically, firstly, through relationships. But secondly, we understood that in every context, you do have people that's local, that have a heart for the communities, that also wants to do this. And it was just a matter of how do we allow them to embrace the model and localize the model that they can actually run the work in the local context. So our first franchise or expansion outside of Cape Town was actually in Portugal. And from there we've started growing quite rapidly across Africa.
Of course, Porto is the home of port. Did that have anything to do with it?
I think that one should take offline.
Great. Anybody else? Yeah, go ahead.
So I'd like to maybe explore translating from the immediate work you're doing to the larger question of employment in Africa, that kind of scale question. I think it's very insightful that both of you are really about shifting the minds of young people to see that they can be value creators, that they can be contributors. Once that, do you see yourself continuing on that path? Is that the critical path, changing more minds? Or is there another barrier after you change their minds? Are there still no jobs? Or there's still not access to finances? Like, once they have that passion, once they have that hope, do there need to be other things, or will they figure that out once they're over?
Okay, one of the things that we do in the after school project is to do opportunity facilitation, which we are, coming to DC, we're actually talking about expanding that with RLabs and with Digital Jobs Africa. So that's like one of my quick wins from this, from coming to DC. But beyond opportunity facilitation as well, we also open up, with the communities that we work with, we do a lot of in-kind support. So we get like internship placements, job placements, where for most of the internship placements that we've got, a lot of the young persons have actually been retained. But just to further, I actually didn't talk about like our scaling up plans, but just to further talk about, just to further in answering your questions, we actually have plans to scale up. And the thing is, we are still working with like a lot of the persons that we've always worked with in terms of our partners within the community to actually do a lot of the connection to broker those opportunities for young persons and actually also be able to scale. And beyond like the courses that we do, we also train young persons and actually going out there to grab opportunities for themselves. And that comes with building value. Back to what Marlon said, what value do you have? How can you bring up your value in a way that it contributes to the organization, it contributes to either the organization that you are getting an internship placement or a job, and also in a way that it contributes to your community. So by the time you can find those connections as well, so you don't just get partnerships, or you don't just get, we are not just interested in people who throw money at us, but we're actually interested in people who create such opportunities for young people. So one of the things that I do is I do opportunity shopping. So when I see any opportunity, I completely just plug into it for the young persons. And then we also encourage our young persons to actually do them as well when either they go out for workshops or they go out to church. So we get all those type of in-kind support to try and change the system, because honestly, after school cannot do it alone. We can't do it alone. The government, of course, cannot do it alone. The church or the communities cannot do it alone. But we have to completely collaborate to be able to have that system changing in a way that a young person gets into school, not because, okay, I get into school, I'm going to read, write exams, cram, write exams, get my degree, and flag it up, I'm a graduate. No. But there's a process. You actually go through a process, and you're going into school, you have a goal already, you have a career aspiration, and then all we need to do is just help you find that career path, help you get and achieve that goal you actually want to achieve.
From our side, what we do is we plug in what we call pipelines. So the mindset shift is purely just the beginning. From there, they can either decide to go back into formal education. So we then actually provide them with again, plugging them into opportunities either with local universities. In some instances, we even raise and get them access to scholarships where they can go and study at university, or if they just want to go back and complete school, they can do that. So there's the further education. Then we also provide the opportunities for, of course, for job as well, also with the internship and the placements. But at the same time, we encourage them to actually go and do work and go and find an organization in your community that you love what they do and go and offer the new skill that you've learned, go and offer it to them. And in most cases, we also find the organization keeping them and saying, listen, we'll actually employ you. A lot of the skills that we do does have a very strong digital focus. So hence it makes them kind of become more employable as well. Exactly. And we do have a shortage of digital workers, especially in the regions where we are working. And then the third one is the entrepreneurial one. I mean, just to give you an idea, we've kind of assisted just over 400 small enterprises that has kind of emerged out of the work that we do. But more specifically, we actually managed to also support tech companies. Now we're talking about the Cape Flats and rural areas where you're actually building a tech company, thinking about building a global tech company out of the most unlikely of places. So what we've done is we've then, through our networks, created a pipeline, getting them started, but then plug them into bigger players that can either acquire them or who's willing to say, listen, we become your distribution channel so that you can bring market to your businesses. So we do have these kind of little pipelines that we are plugging in. And those are always the things that we're thinking about. Wherever there's a gap, be it from a capital perspective, might need early seed funding, we try and find people that's in that space that could potentially serve the community that we're working with. Yeah.
Interesting. It's kind of a similar model, that playing the matchmaker of opportunities as opposed to being the deliverer of those opportunities.
It's just connecting them with these.
You both mentioned different relationships that you have with possible employers, so either a placement for internships or other kinds of connections with volunteering. And I'm just curious from the perspective of how you are working with those potential employers. Do you see that they are? Is it just that the skills that you're building in young people, it's so obvious that they're sort of being drawn, or they're kind of pulling from this new kind of group of young people that they can employ, or is there resistance? I mean, I'm trying to think of what are your strategies for actually helping that mindset shift among the employers, or is it something that's going to happen naturally?
In our case, we I would say a bit fortunate in the sense that in South Africa there is the employment thing where you need to have a certain amount of people that are of a certain racial group. And in a lot of companies, they're still struggling to find the balance. And the reason for that is because they don't have the right, they believe they can't find the people with the right skill sets. So that is why they would rather pay the fine or whatever. So there's a lot of tax benefits for companies if they have that kind of skills. So what we've done is we specifically looked at kind of creating like these little accelerators, understanding that there's some organizations or companies that need certain digital workers or people that can do certain work for them, but they don't have the pool of people that they can draw from. So what we do is we then actually kind of enable and create that, and they come and they plug in very early on. So we even get them to come and do some of the sessions. So it's not just about, okay, we're going to become a feeder for you. For us, it's really about, we actually want you to invest in this person, and that is how you draw your value. So a lot of our placements come through that one angle. The other one that we do is the one where we put the responsibility on the young person to find an organization that they feel they want to serve. And that's more the volunteer internship side of things. And that's amazing. The organizations are always, firstly, stunned that a young person in the community actually want to come and do something for them. But somewhere along the line, that actually kind of builds the relationship with them. And many of our partnerships have come through the young people itself. So for us, the young people is purely just an extension of who we are. So the relationship is always there. Wherever they go, when they start their own businesses, they even employ young people themselves coming from RLabs.
Another thing that might be interesting, based on your question, Claire, is the partnership with the public sector and how you've been able to create these bridges where the public sector is thinking differently about employment based on kind of how you're engaged with. I know you have examples, and you also
Okay, just to further respond to her question, as is to both ways. One, there are already some companies who, like recently, one of the microfinance banks contacted us that they're actually recruiting. So they actually want after school to lead the recruitments for them, which is really exciting because this is a huge microfinance. So I'm like, yay! Okay, and then this also goes the same thing for other companies. But before we got here, it's really been a lot of convincing, a lot of having meetings, a lot of getting a lot of the buy-in from the companies to actually buy into the fact that, and it's particularly different because some of the young persons that are involved in our programs are post-secondary school, that's post-high school. So these are people who are not traditionally graduates, and most companies actually employ traditionally graduates. So you have to be a graduate before you can even get into the system. So we have to do a lot of convincing. We have to do the guaranteeing for them that these young persons, they've been through a process, they have soft skills, they can actually, I mean, they know the workplace, they've been trained for the workplace and all that. So it's really been a lot of convincing, and you have to stand to guarantee that nothing would go wrong and all that. But I think over the years, we've kind of seen that relationship, how it's really improved. And then a lot of the young persons that are involved in our programs are actually ambassadors, and like the situation in South Africa as well, a lot of them actually go out to drive these opportunities, or they have opportunities. They actually plow back into after school. So some of them go to either job interviews with CVs, and then they are like career development program by after school. So that even becomes the basis of the discussion at the interviews. And then you've been through a workplace training, certified workplace training for undergraduates in after school. What's that? So the dynamics of the interview completely changes to that. So it's a two-way thing, but we are still convincing a lot of the companies to be able to open up their processes, even for young persons that are out of secondary schools, to be part of the workplace system, and then also to be able to change the culture from, in Nigeria, we have a certificate-driven economy. So if you're not even a graduate, I mean, people don't even listen to you. So everything is based on the certificates, but we are changing the mindsets of companies to actually place employment decisions based on value, not necessarily where you're from, or if your father's name rings a bell, or if your mother's name rings a bell, or if you're from this tribe in the country, or if you're from this area of the country. So we are actually, it's a work in progress, I would say, to be able to drive that change.
Yeah, but also just to add and to maybe answer the question about the public sector, because we've really started thinking about, again, for us it was working with public sector. We know that there's traditionally people believe that they should be the largest. Everybody believes they must employ, they must create the jobs. And working with young people, we then started making them realize that let's look at where are the gaps in the public sector where you can actually become the service provider for them. So on the one hand, we actually have government that's now employing young people to fill these little gaps for them. And that purely came out of a relationship with them where we told them, we said, no, we don't want these young people to have the normal thing that you take them for 6 months or a year, and then after that, you just kind of recycle the same position. Then you feel good that, oh, I've employed a young person. But the fact is that young person is still not employable because for the year, they were most probably just doing something that was either mediocre, no development. So now they are beginning to think about, okay, when we do employ young people, we're going to make sure that there's a very strong developmental thing. That this young person then actually it increases the level of employability. And that is a program that government is rolling out. And I know in the Western Cape where I reside, they're doing this after-school program now. Very much an after-school mentorship program that is driven by government. And they're using partners. I know one of the other Shulker fellows as well, Become for Youth, is going to become one of the service providers for them. So all of a sudden we're seeing government changing the way they are dealing with, also with these kind of programs. But yeah, another thing just to add to that as well is the opportunity for organizations also to become these, the validation, like you said, your stamp of approval. Where they find out, oh, you've been connected to that. It's the same like the Ivy League schools, I mean, you've been to an Ivy League school, like, come on. Most people want you. So for us, we don't have that, particularly maybe in Africa, as much. So now all of a sudden we found that we can become that for a lot of people that normally would not have had the opportunities. Because we become the one that validate. You know, we put our stamp of approval on that. And on the basis of that, a lot of companies are willing to take people on.
If you could also mention the youth cafes and the partnership with government and how that is changing the way young people who are maybe completely not able to access opportunities are getting into the fold.
So one of the programs we did with government, you know, the needs, not in education and
employment and training.
And it's not in training. So a lot of young people who drop out of school who were unemployed. I mean, maybe not in the US or in some other parts of the world, but in South Africa, especially in Cape Town, these young people love standing on street corners. I don't know why. Right? So they just kind of do nothing. I've tried to figure that one out, but that's a PhD for someone else. but at the heart of it, what we started finding was we needed to have reimagined spaces where young people could go to. I mean, I know government have these little spaces where they have to do the job things, but those spaces are so boring. I mean, like you stand in a long queue, you have to be there early in the morning, and people treat you as if you're just someone that, like, okay, I'm doing you a favor. So we started thinking about, what about if we start reimagining what the space could look like? And the team that actually did the reimagining was young people themselves. So we created, in partnership with government, what we call a youth cafe. And the minister that kind of inspired this, he said this should be an expression of what RLabs is. And the youth cafe, you can think about it as a hybrid of Apple Store and a Starbucks, right? With a little bit of Googleifying around it. Bright color walls, graffiti, some crazy outrageous stuff. So young people go into the space, they can order them cappuccinos, the lattes, the Americanos, you name it. But at the same time, they can also go, you know, like in the Apple Store, you can go do some training. You have these little geniuses, which is young people themselves, who are doing skills training in a very casual way, in a very open way. But the key thing about this program was that government, for them it was very, firstly, we told them there can't be any government branding. Okay. And that's already a big thing for them to shift. Because we said we told them there's going to be a stigma attached to it. Exactly. The second thing we told them was that this place have to be run by young people. Not government officials, young people. And they were willing to actually experiment. And we launched 2 cafes so far, and now cafes are one of the big youth strategies where government is as part of their policy now. And literally, the cafes was only launched in January. So quickly they ensured that, because they've seen the results. And the other thing about the cafe is, just to add, it's a cashless cafe, so you can't use cash in the cafe. You have to use our digital currency that we've created. Not with our reserve bank, unfortunately. And the currency, because we felt that young people, in order for them to spend in the cafe, money shouldn't be an object, because immediately there's going to become a barrier. So now the way you earn the currency, you have to do good in your community. That's it. So you must be a change maker in your community. By being a change maker, you earn currency that you can spend in the cafe. But not only at the cafe, you can go and spend and buy toiletries at the retailer. You can go and have your hair cut. You go to the hairdresser. You can even go and purchase educational programs. It's a kind of a closed marketplace that we created. But the youth cafes have become a key partnership with government that now also brought a lot of private sector guys to the table, which government is now very happy about. So yeah, I'll leave it at that.
Okay, great. So we're going to go back to our online audience since
they're not shy anymore. So our first question is from Employ Africa. They said, I may have missed it, but was the workplace of the 21st century defined or described? Curious to the contextual diversity throughout Africa, even just comparing between the countries that Marlon and Esther are from, Nigeria and South Africa.
And let's take one more question.
And the other question is from Nasir Al-Arda. It's a clarifying question. Is the challenge being discussed here about youth not being engaged in their surroundings, community challenges, or is it about not being able to find jobs?
Okay. So.
Okay. The first question was really long, so I'm going to try to answer it based on the perspective at which I actually understood it. Of course, the 21st century workplace is quite very dynamic. It's extremely dynamic. So it changes like at the second billing. So one of the things that we do for young persons is just prepare, 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 like the Boy Scouts. Always be prepared, you know, for whatever, because that's actually where the workplace is. So, for example, you have a lot of graduates in Nigeria, which is really, really embarrassing. A lot of graduates in Nigeria do not have emails, do not have access to, not access is not the word, cannot use the computers. And I'm like, and you are expecting to work in a bank. Are you going to work from typewriters? Because I really don't understand. So for us, it's just about changing the perspective and activating the young persons to be able to be prepared for that workplace. Because I mean, without the preparations, we're still going to be complaining about the Nigerian local content and how companies and private sectors are bringing in consultants from outside, bringing in staff from outside for work, for jobs that young persons in Nigeria can actually do. So the key word is be prepared. Build that value in yourself. Because I mean, no company, I don't know if it's an African thing, Marlon, but I really don't know where that challenge came from. But a lot of young persons just feel that companies employ out of joy. So they employ maybe because they feel like employing, but that actually is not the truth. Companies employ for value. So they employ based on a need. So, I mean, if you cannot fulfill that need for a company, if you cannot bring that value to solve a problem that they have, there's no means for unemployment. There's no need for unemployment. So for us, it's driving that message that young persons should be prepared for the workplace. You can't be in the 21st century and you don't have an email. You can be in the 21st century and be a graduate or an undergraduate and you can't use the computers. You can use a smartphone. Everything is digital. The world has gone digital. So I think for a lot of young persons, I really like to encourage that they should be able to be prepared. And this is about personal responsibility. It's not the role of your parents. It's not the role of government. It's about yourself. How are you preparing yourself for the workplace?
I mean, from my side, I think defining what the workplace would be in the 21st century on the continent is that's such a nice question to ask. I do believe that it's not so much of defining the workplace. I believe it's actually defining who the worker would be. The realization that my time is value and that I need to know how to sell my time. I need to, and for me, that is going to be the shift. Before, it was very much the industrial age. I know that I'm going to go to a factory, I'm going to clock in, I'm going to clock out, boom, that's the way it works. But I do feel that it's a shift that's happening. If I know that my time is in agriculture, that I can do work in a rural setting, and I can create value out of my time, then that is your workplace. So for me, I believe the shift is more from an actual formal structure perspective to actually shifting the responsibility on the young person. And I believe that is something that we need to kind of understand. That I'm selling my time, be it to a company, or be it as a freelancer, or be it that I'm selling my time into the land that piece of land that I have, or into the ocean where I'm doing some fish farming, whatever the case might be. So that for me, that's how I would define the workplace in the 21st century.
Great. So we're getting really close to ending. If you have any last kind of final comments to share before we say goodbye to everybody online.
I think I'll just basically want to reinforce Ashoka's message that everyone is actually a change maker, which is actually the global dream of us in after school. I come from a sexual and reproductive health background. I always like to say that. And today I do, I'm a career catalyst, and that's what I do full-time now, and providing this light bulb moments for young people. So I mean, and that for me is how I'm changing my community, and that's the same experience that we are preaching out to all the young persons that participate in our program, and to also even change, like we've always been talking about the change in the workplace, to also even change the way work is done. So that goes beyond like the traditional way of getting an employment to actually how can you bring solutions to the issues that you have in your own community. that of course could become your work. That of course could become your business venture. It could become your social venture. So everyone truly, truly, like Ashoka says, is a change maker. So I always want to say to young persons, find that thing you're passionate about, follow your dreams, and then that could just be your career.
Yeah, I mean, from my side is a very good friend of mine, Dave Duarte, says this, and I echo this, that side projects or being a change maker is actually the new CV.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
If you're not doing anything on the side that's got meaning, then you most probably not going to get the job.
Absolutely.
So start doing some things on the side where it's not about you, but it's about other people. That most probably is going to land you the job that you're hoping for.
Great, thank you so much. So we're going to say goodbye to our audience online. I don't know if people in the room would want to stay around and ask questions, but I just wanted to again thank everybody, our fellows, and also our partner, MasterCard Foundation, whom we work with at Ashoka to make the Future Forward initiative possible. So thank you for our online audience, and those of us here, maybe we'll have more informal networking or questions or that kind of thing.